Hello, everybody. So, today we will be reading and discussing the article, The Picture Perfect American Family? These Days It Does Not Exist, written by Andrew J. Sherlin. In this article, he just compares the 2008 presidential candidates, their family, to the ever changing demographics of the United States. So, here are the pre questions, and here are some pictures of the presidential candidates of 2008, their family. Okay, so Sherlin starts with the families of the 2008 presidential election. So, family has always been a huge component to elections, but this group is really special because many different types of families and with many different backgrounds are included in each candidate pretty much. So the candidates were on the Republican nominees. They were John McCain and Sarah Palin, and the Democratic nominees were Barack Obama and Joseph Biden. So this group included working moms. So Michelle Obama, she was a working mom, and she made sure to emphasize that a lot during her speeches. Blended families. Obama would be an example of a blended family, depending on how you see a blended family. He was raised by a single mother, and he has a half sister who is biracial or um, not biracial, but his father is black, so he is a mixed race, um, a man. And let me see. So teen mothers, Sarah Palin's daughter, Bristol Palin, they announced in 2008, I believe, no, Bristol Palin was 17 at the time. Their party announced that Bristol Palin was married, or not married, she was pregnant, and she was unmarried. So she was a pregnant teen mom who was unmarried, which is a big deal to a lot of people, or so we thought. So, and another blended family that was included is a family of John McCain and Joe Biden. John McCain remarried twice. So during this election, he was running with, he was showcasing his second wife, and he also has an adopted daughter. And Joe Biden also has a blended family, a step situation with his children and second wife. So it's important to note that um, divorce isn't a new thing in presidential elections. John F. Kerry ran in 2004 with his second wife, and Ronald Reagan also ran with his second wife in 1980. So, the changing demographics. Up until the 1950s, as we learned in week 4 in the evolution of American families, we see that the typical family was the breadwinner homemaker dynamic, in which the man or the father goes to work, um, makes the money, while the woman, the wife, the mom, stays at home, takes care of the kids, takes care of the house, and also is pretty much kind of in charge of the emotional needs of everyone in the family, everyone in the house. During this time, divorce was very, very stigmatized. It was looked down upon, and something that you should, if you were going to do it, you should just not talk. It should not be something spoken about in public life, in society at all. So divorce would usually disqualify someone back then, like before the 60s, if they wanted to run for any type of public office, especially the big senator, representative, or presidential elections. So circa 1970s, in the last third of the 20th century, dynamics changed. Women worked outside of the house more. The divorce rates rose, as we see here in this chart. Um, Let me see. In 1960, for every 1,000 people, there were 9.2 newly divorced people or couples. But then it raised to 22.6 people per 1,000 married people in 1980, and it lowered throughout the past 3 decades, and it has reached a 50-year low in 2019, which is interesting. Another thing that changed in the 1970s, past the 1970s, was more children were born to unmarried parents. So, for example, in 2008, 58% of kids lived in typical households with two parents, two married parents, and their biological parents. So, as we see, starting from the 1960s, 1970s, and on, there have been a wide variety of living arrangements. So, with the change in family varieties also came with a change in priorities. So, emotional rewards have become a lot more important to Americans. So, in 2001, in the 2001 survey, more than 80% of women in their 20s ranked emotional intelligence over a good income and a husband. So, they were more interested in looking for a husband that they could feel close to, that they could talk to, that they could connect to, rather than just a husband who maybe they didn't get along that well, but he had a really good living. He was able to bring in a lot of money into the house. So, as um, as the author writes, as Andrew writes, some of the new criteria that people use to evaluate their family lives are personal satisfaction, a family that fosters their own growth, a family that prioritizes openness and communication. Those are just some of the criteria that people have started to use when looking inwards, I guess. So, that being said, emotional closeness has become the new gold standard in family lives. So, with that also being said, there are some demographics that are a bit more slow to change, a bit more hesitant to accept broader definitions of families. So, in a study, in a 1998 study, a sociologist went to upstate New York, 4 communities in upstate New York, and asked pastors and, and told pastors this statement. There have been all kinds of family throughout history, and God approves of many different types of family. None of the conservative pastors agreed, while pastors from more liberal denominations agreed. 88% of these liberal pastors agreed with the statement. So that just shows that in the late 90s, that conservatives and religious people still had a very tight, limited definition of family. So we see that these demographics hold the family to a much stricter moral standard. They are more likely to look down on divorce, except for extreme cases of infidelity, desertion, extreme cases of abuse, not even all abuse, just abuse, just certain types of abuse. And they're also more likely to teach their youth sexual abstinence until they get married. However, the widespread acceptance of Bristol Palin's pregnancy in the right after the Republican candidates told their supporters that, hey, um, Sarah Palin was like, yeah, my 17-year-old daughter, she's pregnant, she's not married. We still love her. She's still part of our family. There's nothing wrong with that, and we hope you think it's okay too. And their crowd did accept it. So hopefully that seems to mark shifting attitudes. So, in conclusion, broad definitions of family are becoming more common. Andrew writes that there's still a lot of hesitation to accept LGBTQ families into just public life and government positions, and I do like that he writes he writes that if this continuing acceptance becomes bigger, we might see, you know, people or gender, romantic, and sexual minorities on the big stage in Congress, on in the White House, in the House of Representatives, and we have. And I do like how he said that because Pete Buttigieg, he got, a pretty good following, and he is the mayor of a town already, but he did get a pretty good following in this past election in the Democratic convention, so that's a good sign. And you also have to think about the 2015 same-sex marriage legalization, which brought a lot, like a lot of legal protection for the LGBTQ plus community, which is amazing. So I just want to finish up by saying that I do think broad definitions of family are definitely becoming more common. I do know that in my generation, people around my age, we are, well, this is every generation, pretty much when every generation is young, in their 20s, they always seem to reject the typical, whatever is typical in their society. So I see people my age, we are definitely rejecting the typical definition of family, husband, wife, kids, that's it. Like, I do see a lot of people beginning to have interest in non-romantic co-parenting. So, like, a straight woman would not would be into raising a kid with maybe their best friend who was also a straight woman, or maybe their best friend who was a gay man. It's not romantic, but they would make good parents, so they will go ahead and co-parent together. I've also seen a lot of people being interested in being child-free, which is a huge leap to take in a society that only shows you one way of being a family, which is being a parent and kids, or a couple and kids. So that's a big deal. And then we also see, as I said, non-romantic cohabitation or non-romantic life partnerships. I really do think the possibilities are endless, and I cannot wait. Well, I'm excited to see that more families, there's way more types of families coming out all around the world, and I hope it becomes more popular, and I hope everyone realizes that a family is whatever they choose it to be, whatever they make it. So, thank you. Oh, wait, nope, not finished yet. Here are the post questions, and then here's the quiz, and here is the activity. Thank you.